In a quiet home, something unusual happened that day. A father stood frozen in the doorway, watching his little girl. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't playing. She was hiding, her tiny hands pressed against the wall, face turned away. He called her name softly, but she didn't answer. There was silence, thick, heavy, and strange. Her small shoulders trembled as if she was afraid. The father took a slow step closer, heart pounding. He couldn't understand what had made her act this way. The room was filled with sunlight, but it felt cold. He knelt down, his voice shaking. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Still, no replyingly. A faint sniffle from the corner. Then she whispered something so small, he almost missed it. Her words cracked the air like glass breaking. He froze, not believing what he'd just heard. His eyes filled with tears he didn't expect. He gently touched her shoulder, trying not to scare her. She turned her face slightly, eyes red with fear. He leaned closer, heart aching, and whispered 3 shocking words. Words that would change everything from that moment. On the morning began with sunlight, but ended in haunting silence. Her laughter that once danced through. The house had vanished. Toys lay scattered, untouched, like memories of happier days. Even the birds outside seemed to stop and listen to the quiet. Her father stood in the doorway, heart heavy with confusion. He watched his little girl, small and still, facing the corner. She wasn't playing. She was hiding from something. Unseen, her tiny fingers pressed against the cold wall for comfort. He called her softly, but she didn't move or look his way. That silence was louder than any scream he'd ever heard. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her fragile peace. Her shoulders quivered, a tremor of fear or sorrow. He couldn't tell. His voice broke as he whispered, "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" The refrigerator hummed, the air thick with unspoken worry. Every breath he took felt heavier than the one before. She was his joy, his reason to smile, but now she trembled. He tried to smile, hoping she'd turn and laugh again, but she didn't. She only pressed her face deeper into the wall, and in that moment, he knew something inside her had changed. The laughter he loved most in the world was gone. The corner became her refuge, a place too small for pain. She stood there, motionless, like she wanted to disappear. Her father's footsteps echoed behind her, slow and worried. He could feel the air tighten like fear itself was breathing. He whispered again, his voice trembling with love and doubt. "Please talk to me, baby. Tell me what's wrong." But the only reply was the sound of her quiet sniffle. He knelt beside her, heart pounding like thunder in his chest. Her hair fell over her face, hiding the tears she couldn't hold. He gently reached out, afraid his touch might break her more. "Did someone hurt you?" he asked, voice barely holding steady. The room felt colder, time slower, the moment endless. The little girl's silence felt heavier than any words could. She shook her head, but her eyes refused to meet his. It wasn't the silence of mischief, it was fear, pure and raw. A secret sat between them, unspoken, unbearable. He wanted to fix it, to make it all vanish in one hug. But some walls aren't built of brick. They're made of pain, and that tiny corner had become her fortress of sorrow. He realized then, even love couldn't reach her there. He could no longer stand the distance. Between them, every second she stayed silent, tore another piece of him. He had raised her to trust, to speak, to never hide away. But now, Even his voice seemed like a stranger's to her. He tried to remember the last time she truly smiled. Maybe yesterday. Or had it already been longer than that? He wondered if he'd missed something, a sign, a cry. "Sweetheart," he said softly. "You can tell Daddy anything." His eyes glistened, though he tried to keep them brave. The room around them blurred, only her mattered now. He reached for her hand, tiny and trembling like a leaf. Her fingers curled slightly, hesitant, unsure. Scared, that single touch sent a wave of pain through his chest. He wanted to protect her from everything, even truth. But truth was already standing between them. Unseen, he took a breath that shook like it carried his soul. "Please," he begged, "don't be afraid to look at me." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder, and when she finally turned, he saw tears he'd never forget. They carried a story that no father should ever have to hear. Her lips trembled before the words found their way. Out, a tiny voice, fragile as glass, broke the heavy air. "Daddy," she said, barely audible, eyes filled with fear. He leaned closer, desperate to catch what came next. Her small chest rose and fell, each breath a struggle. Then she whispered 3 words that froze his heart, words so soft, yet sharp enough to cut through his soul. The world seemed to stop. The walls, the light, even time. He blinked, unable to believe what he'd just heard. Tears filled his eyes before he even realized they were falling. He pulled her close, trembling, holding her tighter than ever, her tiny arms wrapped weakly around his shaking frame. It wasn't her fault. None of it ever could be. He wanted to scream, to rage, to undo it all. But all he could do was whisper back, "I'm here, baby." Every heartbeat felt like breaking glass inside his chest. The weight of truth pressed down, unrelenting, merciless. She closed her eyes, trusting his warmth, finding peace. He kissed her hair and swore he'd never let her go again. That whisper became the moment that changed everything. Those 3 words echoed long. After the silence returned, he could still hear them in every breath, every heartbeat. He sat there on the floor, holding her as the world blurred. There was no anger, only pain, deep and helpless. He wished it were a dream, something he could wake from, but the truth had already etched itself into his heart. He rocked her gently, whispering, "It's okay. Daddy's here." Her tears soaked into his shirt like rain on broken ground. He didn't care what had happened, only that she was safe. Every promise he'd ever made suddenly meant everything. He vowed never to let her face her fears alone again, no matter what it took. He'd protect her from the dark, because fathers aren't supposed to be heroes, they just become them. He wiped her cheeks, kissed her forehead, and closed his eyes. He wished he could take her pain and make it his own. She fell asleep in his arms, finally breathing without fear. The room was silent again, but this time it was peace. Love had spoken louder than pain, if only for a moment, and as the sun set, he whispered the same 3 words back. "Daddy loves you," the only truth that could still heal her that night. The house was quiet, but their hearts were loud with pain. The father sat beside her bed, watching her tiny hands relax in sleep. Every time she flinched, his heart cracked a little deeper inside. He brushed her hair back, whispering prayers she couldn't hear. He wanted to erase her memories, paint her world with safety again. But healing takes time. and love alone can't always mend the cracks. He remembered the way she used to run into his arms. Fearless now, she held on to silence like it was her only protection left. He stayed awake, afraid that if he blinked, she might vanish again. The moonlight fell across her face, soft and fragile as hope. He whispered promises, that he'd never let her hurt again, that no shadow would ever touch her heart while he breathed. The walls heard him cry that night, a father's broken vow. Tears rolled down, falling like rain into the quiet of her dreams. He didn't care who failed her. He'd rewrite her world himself. Love became his armor, guilt his weapon, faith his only light. When she stirred, he took her hand gently, whispering her name. Her fingers curled around his, trusting once more. Even in sleep, and in that small touch, he found the courage to begin again, because love, when pure, always finds its way back through pain. The dawn came slowly, golden rays spilling through her window. She woke up to find her father still sitting there beside her. His eyes were red, but his smile was soft and full of love. He offered her a small breakfast, pancakes shaped like hearts, for the first time in days. She smiled, a fragile, trembling smile. He didn't mention the night before. Only hope mattered now. They talked about cartoons, colors, and her favorite pink socks. She giggled once, shyly, and his heart nearly broke with joy. That tiny sound reminded him that healing had begun. Sometimes love isn't in the words, it's in the quiet moments. He fixed her hair, told her she looked like sunshine itself. She looked up, her voice soft. "Daddy, are you okay?" He smiled, hiding the storm behind his gentle eyes. "Yes, my little angel," he said. "Daddy's just happy you're smiling." For the first time, the air in the house felt light again. He lifted her into his arms, feeling warmth return to his world. The past hadn't vanished, but it no longer owned their hearts, because every sunrise after pain carries a promise of peace. And that morning, he realized love had survived the storm. Sometimes the smallest smile can save the biggest soul. Later that day, she sat quietly drawing hearts on white paper. He watched her from the couch, pretending to read, afraid to disturb. Then she asked, softly, "Daddy, why did you cry last night?" His breath caught. How could he tell her the truth she couldn't bear? He smiled instead, eyes heavy with unspoken stories. "Because I love you more than anything in this world," he said. She tilted her head, innocent, pure, searching his eyes, and pure, searching his eyes. "Even when I hide from you," she whispered uncertainly. He stood, walked to her, and knelt so they were eye to eye. "Especially then," he said, his voice shaking with truth. Her small fingers reached out, touching his cheek in silence. He closed his eyes, tears forming not of pain, but of healing. The weight between them finally began to dissolve away. In that moment, love didn't need big words, just presence. The wall she once faced became only a memory now. He realized children don't need perfect parents, just present ones. He promised himself to always listen, always see, always care, because sometimes the bravest thing love can do is simply stay. She smiled again, a full one this time, bright and real. And for the first time, the house felt like home once more. As evening fell, the light painted gold across the quiet room. She climbed into his lap, small arms wrapping around his neck. For a while, neither spoke, Silence felt peaceful this time. He kissed her forehead, whispering softly, "You're safe now." She looked up, her eyes shining like stars after a storm. "Daddy," she said, her voice no longer trembling with fear. "Yes, my love," he answered, his heart full of gentle wonder. Then she smiled and said the same 3 words he once whispered. "Daddy loves you," pure, innocent, perfectly true. He froze, eyes watering, overwhelmed by her courage. Those same words that broke him once were now healing him. He hugged her tight, breathing in her laughter, her warmth. The cycle of pain had ended, replaced by grace. The house was alive again, not with noise, but peace. He realized healing isn't forgetting, it's learning to smile again. And when a child says, "I love you," the world becomes whole. She giggled softly, fingers tracing his wedding ring. He whispered back, "More than all the stars in the sky." That night there was no more fear, no more hiding, only a father and daughter bound forever by love. Later, when she was asleep, he stood by her window, watching stars dot every light above. Felt like a promise, a reason to keep going. He realized life isn't about avoiding storms but surviving them together. Some wounds never vanish, but love teaches us how to live with them. He thought of all the parents who never get this second chance and whispered a prayer for them, for healing, for peace, for courage, because a child's trust is sacred. Once lost, it takes a miracle to return. That night, he became not just her father, but her protector forever. He knew the world can be cruel, but love will always be louder. Her tiny hand rested on his arm. Even in sleep, trusting, safe, he smiled through tears, knowing that was the purest forgiveness. Love had rewritten the ending, one heartbeat at a time. He kissed her forehead and whispered softly into the dark, "You're safe now, my angel, and you'll never face fear alone." The stars above seemed to shimmer a little brighter then, because some stories don't end with words, they end with healing. And that night, a father's heart found peace in a child's innocence. The pain that began in silence ended in love's eternal echo. The wall that once held her fear now held only their laughter, because even broken hearts can learn to beat again through love and through love.